Hey guys, welcome to the show. It's Joey here. This is our first recording for 2022. Super excited. And even more exciting is that today's episode is all about me. If you've listened to the show before, you know that I really am quite partial to talking about myself. Paul is interviewing me about my journey to black belt. I got it late last year, just before my birthday. It was in the 22nd of November or something like that. Yeah, really cool. I hope that you enjoy the chat. It was very nice to be on the other side of the table. He steered the ship today. Please enjoy. I want to ask a favor of you. I've started a new Instagram account for the Jungle Alliance, and I'd like you to go and follow it. I want to try and build a bit of momentum here. It's this new venture of ours. It's how we're helping to foster gym owners who have a vision like ours, who want to go and create a remarkable community and a gym that does its absolute best to transform these people's lives. And this is what the Jungle Alliance does, is it fosters these individuals so that they have the highest chance of success and they can belong to a greater organization of other people who share the same values of them and want to see them win, because at the end of the day, we're all battling against mainstream fitness, the big globo gyms. We want to take people away from that. We want to drive them towards more grassroots operations. So it's Jungle Alliance on Instagram. Real simple. There's no hyphens, there's no anything. It's just Jungle Alliance, all one word. Please go and follow it. Help me grow the account. You're going to see a little bit of me there. You're going to see the training ethos, and you'll see the podcast moving over to that account very soon. Enjoy today's episode where I talk about my black belt journey. We are live, my brother.
What's up?
Chilling, man. It's Friday afternoon. It's mid-January. I can't believe it's mid-January already. And I'm taking a holiday next week.
Did you just get off holiday?
Yeah, but I had the Rona.
Yeah. And?
So it's like you get the holidays refunded if you get the Rona.
Yeah. Yeah.
People may not have heard.
I'm going to Christmas tomorrow.
On the fucking mid-Jan.
Up at Central Coast, the Christmas we never had because of the Rona.
Oh, brah. We had, for folks who don't know, Paul and I had it at the same time, more or less. We caught it a couple of days before Christmas.
Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah, that was,
Yep.
yeah. Took the test. I think I took the test on the 23rd. And then got the results, 4 days later or something. Yours, did you take a long time to get your results?
Yeah. Was it 3 days? Yeah, something like that.
Not too bad.
9 out of 10 listeners have got it right now.
Oof. It's fucking going through. For anyone listening, it's like, if there is anyone out there that's listening to today's episode, I know you're there. This is our first episode this year. The episode that came out last week was our last episode from last year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys. Thanks for being with the show. And let's get it going for another year. I've actually got big plans this year. I won't talk too much about them at this point. Big plans, big guests, big intro music, big energy.
Hey, do you remember back in the day when it was a bit of a thing to have those little buttons that had... What was it? It was key rings that had like a few sayings on it from Star Wars or from whatever. And you used to do them, used to ring people up and then play the little one-liner.
I can think of what you're talking about, but no,
and they had prank apps where
Right.
you could, and you had your phone, you'd call someone and you'd hit the button and you'd have the conversation with that person, like Snoop Dogg, whatever. I just thought of Biggie. You should get a Biggie one because I got plans, big plans. Yeah, like that. That needs to come back.
My brother had one that was given to him by my cousin Ben, and it was a little black box with 4 buttons, and it was called The Last Word, and it was like fuck you, and then the other one was eat shit, and you just press it was like fuck you, but like, and I just like pump it as a kid. I'm like, this is the best.
I know.
But yeah,
where are they gone?
But we didn't have. Well, we had home phones, but like getting it into the room where the home phone is without people finding you to do the prank calls, it's a tall lot. I couldn't do it.
So we're back, new year, and today we are talking about something pretty cool that happened last year. Big Joey became Big Black Belt Joey. He received his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Does that make you a professor?
Yeah, but a professor in Portuguese just means teacher.
Okay.
So that's the title.
Yes.
It's just like, teacher, coach.
Very cool.
Yeah, but for us, it's like, ooh, professor.
Yes,
it sounds cool.
Hey, look, and it's just a huge achievement. We want to acknowledge that and just talk about it today. Not many people actually get a black belt in their lives. And I think it is a mark of significance because it requires, well, depending on what you're getting a black belt in, but certainly in jiu-jitsu, I think it's regarded as, you know, anyone that gets ones, or most people that get them, it's seriously legit. You go through lots of training, the meat grinder at many points in time, but it's a mark of consistency and dedication to a particular art over a fairly long period of time. What's the quickest kind of black belt grading out there? There must be some quick ones.
Oh, there's stories of
stories.
BJ Penn, who I believe got his in 2 years, they say.
Ah, okay, yes.
But, you know, apparently it was when he was in the UFC and he was training full-time with a private jiu-jitsu coach, and it was like
Sure.
multiple privates a day, you know, like, and he's a phenom.
Okay, he probably had some wrestling background and...
I think I think, you know, the phenomenal, like, individuals out there who really dedicate their life to it, you maybe see that it can be done more commonly within like 4 to 6 years.
Wow.
But I think then the general time frame that's told to people as a bit of a minimum is 10.
10 years, yeah.
And then, you know, what it actually plays out to for most people is like 10 plus.
Yep. So many things happen across 10 years in any person's life. And staying consistent to any one thing, I mean, it's tough. So yeah, first of all, like, huge congratulations. It's a bit of a delay since it happened.
Yeah.
And I'm so stoked for you. But I remember at the time I was like beaming because it was a surprise to me, and obviously it wasn't happening to me, but fuck, I've been your mate for so long since, I guess, did I come to comps when you were a white belt?
Yeah. I remember you coming to that one. You and Tash came to the second comp that I did.
Uh-huh.
I remember, which is the one that I won.
Okay.
Because I remember Tash asking me at the end, "Are you going to get your blue belt now?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Yeah. You've got to work hard to get a blue belt, Tash." And then, I think you came to a bunch actually over those early years.
Yeah. So like I've been,
There.
you know, there the whole time.
We
and
competed at a comp together. You were a blue belt. I was
correct.
a purple belt.
Yeah, correct.
We went.
How many years ago was that?
Man, that was when we just opened the gym. So we'd like, that was when we had the first Jungle Brothers gym down in Banks Meadow. And I guess it was, I don't know, fuck, I lose track of time. It was probably 8 years ago.
Yeah. I was white belt. I've never competed at blue.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You weren't, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you won.
Yes.
You won your division and I won mine.
I know. I've only been in a couple of comps, and yeah, that was a really cool day for me. Fehoko was young, and he was there. He was just running around. But yeah, it was a fucking awesome feeling because I had pretty poor mentality going into it. Like, oh, I'm just going to do what I can. So nervous. But yeah, I mean, how long has your journey been from when you started jiu-jitsu to, when did you get it? You got it in December, or was it November?
I should know. It was just before my birthday. It was like, late November.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the weekend before my birthday.
10 plus years?
I should be able to tell you the date and time, just like the date my son was born, but I fucked even that up the other day. It's been 13, 14 years, something like that.
Wow.
And there's been gaps in there, but that's been the total duration of time from when I started to when I got the black belt. Long fucking time. Long time. And many times in there I thought, this is it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not gonna continue on to black belt.
So, well, a couple of questions. When you started, were you starting going, I want to get my black belt in this? Or was it, how did you start type of thing? And was it kind of like, I'll just go along, or this is kind of cool?
Yeah, it was totally not the goal to get a black belt.
Yeah.
Because at that time, it was such a rare thing to see a black belt.
Mm.
Like at the gym that I trained at, there was the coach who was a black belt, and then he had another black belt that coached at another gym, and he would come in sometimes. Mm. But the other coaches at my gym, they were both purple belts, and that was super rare. You would go to a competition, and maybe you'll see a black belt match, but probably not. Because there just wasn't many of them. And the reality is when you get to black belt, there's less black belts out there, but then the ones that are less inclined to compete because they're usually a bit older and like they're not trying to carve that, forge that kind of legacy anymore. there is obviously a small percentage that are. But so when I started, I don't know if I even looked at, so for anyone that's not familiar, you start as a white belt, and then the first belt that you get promoted to is blue, then purple, then brown, then black. So there's 5 belts. First one's free. The blue belt, which Paul's a blue belt, I don't know if I even thought that I wanted to achieve that when I started, because you turn up and you're new and you see a blue belt and you're like so in awe of them. And I think I just wanted to give it a go and was having some fun. And then at some point I realized, oh wow, I'm like half decent here and I might get my blue belt. But I always remember, like I remember vividly being at competition as a white belt, looking at blue belts and thinking, oh man, look at them. Wow, guy's a blue belt. And then when I got my blue belt, I remember being in competition looking at purple belts going, oh, he looks so tough. That purple belt, wow.
So strong.
Yeah, and it just every belt, it was just, again, like the next one.
Yep.
So I never really had that long-term vision as far as I can remember.
So not many black belts back then. Are you saying that there's quite a lot around now?
Yeah, there is. So I don't know what the stats are. I actually Googled it because I wanted to know in what percentage of the world population I am as a black belt. But I did a search the other day, and there's hundreds of thousands of black belts now, something like that.
Mm-hmm. In jiu-jitsu.
In Brazilian jiu-jitsu, yeah, that's right. We're talking just BJJ. Back then, I believe the story was that the original 2 or 3 Brazilians who came to Australia and formed the New South Wales Jiu-Jitsu Federation or the Australian Jiu-Jitsu Federation were the first black belts to live in Australia. And I think that was in like 2002.
Shit. Not all that long ago.
No, so at that point, so that's only 20 years ago. At that point, the guys that were running jiu-jitsu academies were the Australian pioneers, John Will, Peter Devine, there's a bunch. I'm not paying respect to all of them, so I don't know them all. But they would go to Brazil and train and get a blue belt and come back and run their academy. And they'd be like, guys, here's the techniques I learned in Brazil. That was how it was going on. So it took them years because they'd have to go fly and see their coach, train, and then, maybe get promoted. So they were like blue and purple belts. If you go back to then, there was technically 3 black belts in Australia in like 2002. So obviously over time, they've promoted their students and graded more, and more Brazilians, more black belts have emigrated here and all that, whole thing. But so it's not as rare now. However, when you turn up to training, depending on the academy you go to, you still might not see a black belt, besides your coach, or your coach might not even be one. That's the reality of it. Then you go to a highly competitive gym, you might see 8, but yeah, it's still kind of a rare thing, interestingly.
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not to go too deeply into the history of it, but it came from Brazil. In Brazil, there's black belts walking around everywhere, right? There's people that train from very young. There's a lot of... Am I wrong? Is that there's a bunch of teenagers with black belts walking around?
No, you can't, because you can't get a black belt, I think, until you're 18.
Okay.
So it's only, and I mean, I really could be corrected by someone, but from what I can tell, it's only now that we are seeing like 18-year-olds, like they literally like hit their, like it's the day of their birthday and they get the belt.
Happy birthday.
And it's because they've been winning world championships since they were 14,
yep.
15, 16, 17. Guys like Talison Suarez and, who's in Byron Bay actually. And there's another kid, Micah Galvão. They are like professional jiu-jitsu athletes as teenagers.
Yep.
But from what I understand, that's the beginning of this like childhood jiu-jitsu. Or at least like, it's gone to the absolute youngest age it can. Whereas previous generations was like, maybe it was a 25-year-old that got his black belt. And
totally.
then, a few years before it was a 30-year-old.
Absolutely.
So interestingly, and when you look at the stories of these kids, it's like they've been training since they were 4 years old.
Yeah, gotcha.
They've been in the academy since that age. So I feel like that is we're at like peak or whatever that is, but like in terms of speed of development, it's there now.
Yeah, wow. I wanted to talk about like the kind of what I see is that like the value of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt versus many other black belts, and kind of what it means and what it kind of takes to get there, just to like, you know, shape out how, you know, how shiny this trophy is that you've achieved. Because, and look, I'm not a martial arts expert by far, and I haven't trained across all disciplines, so I don't really know. Not all martial arts.
You've done some shit.
I've done some shit. Haven't spent like long periods of time studying, you know, any one particular art, like a few different arts, like, you know, some, you know, lifelong martial artists do. But not all styles have black belts. But there's a bit of a thing where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can get a black belt in some arts where you have to show discipline, you have to show dedication, proficiency in technique, you got to be athletic, you've got to be there in the culture, but you don't necessarily have to get put through the meat grinder. Obviously, martial arts is based in some physical contact, whether it be self-defense or something more offensive. But you can go through without having to do sparring so much, or it doesn't. A lot of martial arts don't get like all the way close, and this is the great thing about jiu-jitsu, to, you know, actually having to apply that into a real life situation. Jiu-jitsu is famous for the fact that you can. It's hand to hand. It's grappling. You're in a situation where someone's trying to enforce their will upon you. You're trying to enforce it upon them. And you can go, because of the way that it's set up with submission and the understanding of what you're doing in the training room, you can go 100%. You can try to break someone's arm. And when you tap, you literally are tapping and you're saying, you just broke my arm, or you just choked me, you choked me dead. And because of that, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I feel like there's, like, I regard a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, even if it's, you know, one that you don't really credit. It was really whatever, like a really tough gym, a really tough black belt or not, that person's definitely gone through some shit and will be very capable of, you know, imposing their will upon someone or defending their lives if they had to. Can you just speak on that a little bit? You know what I'm talking about, yeah?
Yeah. There's like a stress testing kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
That you don't get in all martial arts.
Correct.
Yeah, so I guess like to give context, you know, about the greater martial arts thing. Yeah, most martial arts do have a system of belts, which shows rank, and usually the top rank is black belt. But it does vary from style to style. But, you know, you'll meet karate black belts, and there's, you know, there's hundreds of different forms of karate, there's hundreds of different forms of kung fu, like there's judo, there's aikido, like there's just so many different martial arts. It's off the charts. And for most of them, the black belt would denote mastery or like expert status in that art. What has happened over time to a lot of martial arts is that they've been commercialized to the point where the belts are really given as a way to retain students. So it's almost like a kind of badge system to keep you in the game. And I mean, we've spoken about this with your kids doing, was it Taekwondo?
Yep.
And, you know, and the same thing happens in kids' Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where it's very, we'll just call it Jiu-Jitsu from here on. It's just easier to, you know, cut that word off for anyone, you know, just to give understanding. But, you know, for a lot of kids' martial arts, you will give a lot of belts and like little awards between belts, because you're trying to make a system that keeps the kids interested and motivated, right? Mm-hmm. That gets applied to many other martial arts, and what you've ended up with is a proportion of different styles of martial arts that are actually really watered down, and they're all about just getting in clients and keeping them there and having a good time and paying their money. But, you know, they don't actually necessarily enforce a standard upon the people. So you might turn up to a class, it's like, oh, these are the black, you know, whatever, these are the experts, but it's like, guys are, you know, this person's weak and out of shape, and maybe they got like a really good like form that they can copy that looks impeccable. But if you put them on if you put them into a street fight, they've never tested their skills, kind of thing. So there's obviously a spectrum across martial arts.
Yep.
And jiu-jitsu sits towards the other end of the spectrum, where it is constantly, as a practitioner of it, you're constantly pressure testing your skills in a live training situation. And like you said, because it is a grappling-based art, it is based on submissions rather than strikes. It means that you can engage in full contact sparring on a daily basis in training.
Sorry to interrupt. And I guess I want to say I'm not trying to diminish other martial arts at all, because it's just less practical with arts that are striking dominant. And that's, just a...
Absolutely. Yeah, like if you train... Yeah, that's right. If you're training like karate and and you're like drilling head kicks or like spinning back fists at 100%, you're going to fucking break your training partner's jaw every night of the week.
Yep.
So it's not practical, right? And that is what gives, I think, jiu-jitsu a very special... It gives it a special place because you can go 100%. And it is not a street fight. It is not, you're doing it on mats. Like there's so many elements of it that are not realistic.
Yep.
But still at the end of the day, you're grabbing someone's body and then you're trying to figure out ways to shut them down. So that has a huge carryover to the street or to life, where it's like, well, if you can get your hands on someone, you're probably going to have a great advantage because you've got, hundreds of hours of practice of wrangling bodies. Similar to a wrestler. Like if anyone follows wrestling, it's like you look at these guys, they just throw bodies around on the mats all the time. You put a wrestler into the UFC, they're always going to be dangerous because if they get their hands on you, you're getting thrown. And, to talk to your point, there are heaps of striking arts out there, more traditional martial arts, like forms of karate and judo and stuff that are fucking gangster. Like, and that a black belt in that art speaks to the same degree that of a jiu-jitsu black belt, where you're like, maybe even more so, right? Like we're not in those worlds, but you're like, wow, that person could literally kill you. I don't know if I could kill someone, you know what I mean? But you're like, that motherfucker knows a death touch.
I think that's a great place to go because, we're all wondering, have you used it in a real life situation before?
Story time, guys.
Right. You did tell the story on one of the podcasts a little while back, and I had never heard that story. The one, I think you were down at Bondi. Were you in the line to get a kebab or something?
Yeah. And I saved that dude from getting bottled from behind.
And he didn't give you any love.
No, he thought he saved the fucking day. I'm like, bruh.
You want to just hash over that one, bruh?
All right, yeah. So there's only
quite good.
There's only a couple. It's only come in handy a couple of times. That one at Bondi was we'd been drinking at a pub had closed, gone to another pub, and there's this mass of people, and we've all ended up at this kind of kebab shop or something on the strip down near the beach. And, it's on a plaza, and, it's like everyone's lining up to get into the counter, and it's probably about like 10 people wide and kind of like quite deep. Everyone's trying to get to this joint. So we're all just kind of standing there mingling. And there's two guys in front of me that are like poking this dude in front of them who's with his girlfriend. So they're just like saying some shit to him and talking to each other. You can see they're antagonizing this guy. And the guy's kind of turning around being like, yeah, fuck you guys, like, shut up, whatever, leave me alone, whatever. But he was bringing a bit of heat too, like he wasn't afraid of these guys. And he's with his girlfriend, and then these two guys are doing the thing. And as I recall, one of the two guys in front of me, they look like rough, they look like trouble. One of them disappears out of the line and then comes back moments later, and he's got a bottle in his hand. And I clocked that, and I'm like, fuck, he's got a bottle. And, instantly I'm like, this is serious. And they're still going on with this dude, still like, poking him and whatever.
They seem pretty inebriated.
Yeah, everyone's drunk. And back and forth, the guy goes to lift his arm to smash the bottle over the dude's head. And I'm like, I've clocked it, so I'm waiting for it. He lifts his arm, and it was like taking candy from a baby. I just threw a choke on him, like a rear naked choke, instantly.
It disregarded the arm, just went straight for the neck.
Yeah, I just grabbed, because I got there so quickly. I was like waiting, and I saw the hand flinch, and I just threw my arm around him, threw him in a choke, squeezed it really tight, and pulled him out of the line and dragged him back. And he collapsed, and he like fell, like he went limp.
Yep.
And so I let him down, like I put him down, and I let the choke go.
Yep.
And he kind of came to pretty quickly, and he got back up, and he's like, what the fuck just happened? What'd you do to me, man? What the fuck? And his friend ran out of the line at the same time. He's like, let's get the fuck out of here, man. And then they bolted off.
You kidding me?
Yeah. Like,
Young guys?
yeah, young guys.
Damn,
You know, like early 20s kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, it had escalated to where they didn't want it to go.
How about that?
And I remember when I let him go, because he'd gone out, right? Like he'd gone unconscious.
So you locked it on him, and you had him in it standing, probably like dragging back, coming down to seated, maybe 10 seconds of a bit of scuffle. Was he trying to like get out of it?
Yeah, maybe. But I remember like he was smaller than me, and I squeezed it really tight.
Yeah.
Just probably a few seconds. It just shut his lights out.
Joey's had a few skillies by then
Yeah,
too.
I'm ready. You know,
Yes.
I'm like, let me flex my jiu-jitsu here in the plaza.
Saved the day, then he popped a handstand straddle.
Yeah. JungleBrothers.com. See you guys at the gym.
Handstand flex.
And the guy, I remember letting him go because I actually freaked out a little bit. I'm like, oh shit, like I've shut the guy's lights out. I wasn't trying to choke him unconscious, and it happened so quickly. I let it go, and then he came to, and I remember thinking, fucking should have held it because now it's on. Now he wants to fight.
Yep.
And he got up and he looked at me, and then he was like, and he wasn't with it. He was dizzy as fuck, and his mate grabbed him and they're like, man, let's go, and they bailed.
Yep.
But yeah, so the dude that didn't get bottled because I choked old mate, he just thought that he had like talked him out of it. He didn't know he was about to get bottled. He didn't know I dragged the dude off in a choke.
You didn't bother to tell him.
And I was going to be like, hey, brah, do you see what I did? So he was just like, yeah, fuck those guys, you know, like to his girlfriend and stuff. And
He'll never know.
yeah, and I was just like, how funny.
That is so funny. And he'll never listen to this episode and know, because that happens
He
to
doesn't.
guys every Friday and Saturday night.
Exactly right.
I'm getting poked in the back, antagonized.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of the.
That's a really heroic story.
It was cool. I was very proud of myself.
How far back was this, and what belch were you?
I don't know. I was probably a blue belt, maybe a purple belt or something at the time. That was sort of my peak jiu-jitsu years, blue and purple. I'd been training from, 12 to, it was like I got my blue belt after a year, or at the end of that first year, and maybe it was another 4 years in between there and purple. And I was competing a lot, and I was training heaps, and I was like mid to late 20s, so it was like my peak time.
I remember.
Yeah.
Very comp orientated.
Yeah. It was my thing back then. Much less of an emphasis now.
That's cool. The other time?
The other time was on a film set.
No fucking way.
Yeah, I was doing that film. It was a horror thriller on the Great Barrier Reef that was shot on an uninhabited island, and the movie was called Uninhabited. And they took myself. I was with Jason Poole and Juzzy Sykes. I was a swinger.
Yep.
Between grip and electrics department.
Yep.
They took 24 of us to this uninhabited island for 6 weeks. So we were camping. We had tents. We had limited food supplies. We had to take our own water. We only had battery power. It was wild.
Classic.
On this island in the middle of the ocean.
So who did you slap on your skills?
It was the director's son.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
It's coming back to me.
Yeah, long story short, the director had gotten his son to star in the film. His son was a pompous, arrogant, rich kid. And what we later learned is that the father had had basically forced him into this role where he was trying to bring his son out of his shell somehow in actual life by making him do this. Our suspicion, and I don't mean to talk out of turn, was that the son was homosexual and that the father wanted to somehow try to change that by throwing him into this role where the film is about him and his fiance on this island together being in love. And then, this horror shit unfolds because the island's haunted. So the film literally has 3 characters. It has the guy, the girl, who are madly in love. They're on an uninhabited island. They have sex scenes, all the shit you do that you would do. They're walking in the water, sunset walks, all that stuff. And then there's a ghost of a young girl on the island that comes and kills him or whatever.
Fucking classic.
So this all unfolded. So I don't know if that was actually the case, but all I can say was
I'll go with that.
this was what we detected as the crew, because the whole job was this director trying to extract a performance from his son. And he had a great female cast member. She's gone on to be quite a significant actor now. I've seen her in plays, and she's a really, quality Australian actor. But I remember being on the boat, holding the reflector, being in there, and they're trying to do a scene where he comes up from behind and hugs her and have a kiss.
Was it awkward? Was he trying to get something out and they were having shit energy?
It was awkward as fuck. It was like, put your arm around him. Okay, yeah, no, just kiss her, not on the chair. I just want you, just kiss her like you would kiss someone you love. And he's like, and this guy was so wooden, and you're like, how the fuck did we end up on this production all the way here, and you brought this guy to play the role? I was like, I could do a better job of this. Like, fucking put me on, coach. You know what I mean? I'm like, I could fucking jump in.
Yeah.
It actually got floated. It got floated as an idea.
Are you kidding me?
Not even a joke.
Because it wasn't work. It was clear to everyone.
Clearly not working. There were these breakdowns.
Oh my god.
Over the weeks where the son would like blow up at his dad.
Oh.
I don't fucking want to be here anyway. I don't know why you put me on this, and storm off set. And it was like, oh my god, what the fuck were you? And that was like on day 5.
Fucking hell, film industry is so crazy. I had
wild
experiences like that as well, but.
Like wild that it got to this point, and there's 25 of us here that we've been brought in from other parts of the country.
Money spent.
Critter was there. Shaky was there.
Okay.
When you see him, ask him. Pooley.
And it was
wild experience.
Maybe potentially an extravagant way of getting to his son.
Exactly. Trying to some kind of therapy where the dad's like, I'm going to correct this homosexuality.
That is so strange.
It was awful.
But tell me, how did you end up? What did you do? Arm lock him?
Well, here's the interesting story.
This is the funny bit. How do you?
Kid's an Aikido expert.
Oh.
Right? So we had we had Sundays off because there's not much to do there, right? We had Sundays off. Saturday nights we'd drink a bunch, hang out, and then Sundays off, everyone's kicking around, swimming, whatever. And I noticed that this kid was having a hard time. And he was maybe my age or a couple of years younger than me. And someone had told me, he does Aikido. And so I was like, oh, dude, you train Aikido? He's like, yeah, I do. Like he might have been a black belt. And we had a cool chat about it. It was here in Sydney somewhere. And I was like, oh man, I train jiu-jitsu. Like maybe you want to do some training together. So we did a couple sessions together, just some fitness stuff. And again, I couldn't crack the nut. The kid wouldn't open up to me. It was all very kind of, guarded and whatever. But, he was amicable enough. Tensions grew over the weeks, and a great sort of piece of tension grew to exist between this actor and the assistant director, the first AD.
Who was that?
Matt Enfield.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know Matt.
And I really liked Matt.
Nice
He's a great guy. And, tensions grew, and in the last couple of days of shooting, they blew up at they blew up at each other. It came to this rap party, and the rap party was awesome. We're on a fucking island. Rap party, for folks who haven't been to one, it's when you've wrapped the show, like the film's over, and you have this big party. It's a big celebration.
And everyone cheats on their partners.
That's right. And it's the rap party, so do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd. And people are so strung out after a film, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
The rap party, you got drugs and alcohol involved. It just shit gets awkward real quick. But it's such a relief because those, we've spoken about it. Those projects in the industry are just so long and so arduous. And this one was particularly unique. It was only 6 weeks, but it was, we were there full time on this thing. So we had a film awards night. So everyone it was a black tie event. So everyone had to create an outfit based on, I painted shit on myself. We had, leaves, and it was wild. It had turned into, Lord of the Flies by then. But it was really great. We had this event and everyone was super hammered, and the kid was in his tent. I'm not coming to the fucking rap party. And he stayed in his tent, which was not that far away. And at a point, he could hear all of us celebrating, and he stormed over and started ripping into the first AD. He stormed over, hey, you fucking, and got stuck into him. And so I just tripped him and put him on his back because he was getting aggressive.
Yep.
And I could see, Matt.
And Matt was defending himself?
Yeah, it was about to turn physical, not from Matt's end, but just from his end.
Yep.
So I threw him and pinned him on the ground. And and I just pinned him by the neck, and I think I had I was kneeling on him.
Yep.
And, again, it was like, I came in from the side. It was no defense. It was, I can't, claim to, anyone could have done it. And I just held him there and he was just going off. And he was saying, I'm pinning him to the ground and everyone's like, mate, calm down. You just need to calm down. To him. And he's like, oh, you're that wrestler. Get off me, wrestler. and that was my last, that was like the second last night.
So it was a trip. It was a foot trip.
Yeah, some kind of
place the shoulders a little.
Yeah, I think I grabbed him by the throat actually, which is not you don't really grab by the throat and throw with it. But it was just again.
And then you controlled him, but it wasn't like you had to break out some purple belt level technique in order to do so.
No.
But martial arts gives you the confidence to be able to inject yourself somewhere, I suppose. But it's not obviously designed. You often have, they say the martial artists or people who train tend to not fight more, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you probably have somewhat more of an understanding of what it's actually like, and you realize the inherent risks, and maybe there's a confidence with doing it more often in a training environment, and so you can somehow, maybe you exude that. I mean, cauliflower ears help with it a little bit. People see cauliflower ears and they're like, maybe this person's done a bit. Yeah, maybe it's not worth it kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know bouncers always pick up on the cauliflower ears.
Yes.
You
can see their eyes dart.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll comment and they're like, oh, look out. This guy's got cauliflower ears. Look out. But that's a cue for them.
Yes.
They're looking for cues of danger and risk and they're like, okay.
Sure, they teach that down at security school.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a thing because there's so many whether you're a black belt or not, lots of people know how to grapple.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really effective in those street situations and, in those situations outside of clubs and whatnot. It's a thing. Yeah. That's crazy. That is a hilarious story.
For folks who want to watch the film, I believe.
Oh, here we go.
It was on sale at Big W for like 99 cents. The DVD.
No way.
Yeah, it was a fucking shocker of a film.
What'd you say it was called?
Uninhabited.
All right, kids, go out there.
Go get it. It's going to become a cult classic.
Mm-hmm. Good thing is the credit roll only goes for 1 minute.
Yeah. Hey, one of the few films I got a credit for.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yes.
I don't even know.
Yeah. Did you actually watch it?
No. We didn't even go to I think there was a premiere and it was like, you going to the premiere? I was like, no, I'm not going to the premiere.
That's so funny.
The film's going to suck.
So with the black belt, I wanted to ask, and I guess we had this conversation before, but got the black belt. It is a couple of months since you got it, a month and a half. How did it make you feel? Like, was it, given that you'd been on the journey for so long, what did it feel like when you got it? And then, like, how does that affect you now? Is it like, to some extent, like you started, you weren't going for a black belt, you were just in it and you were loving it, learning. And then I'm assuming that when you get closer to the end and you start progressing, you're looking ahead at the next belt. Certainly when you're at Brown, it's a significant marker. You're there, you're a professor, and you're like, I want to get that. And I saw you here. You were chasing it somewhat. Last year, really didn't speak about it, but I was fully aware that you were back on that trail and it looked like you were just training consistently, and that's kind of what you needed to do to get there because, you've had some setbacks with injuries. We've been busy with the business, etc., and schools changing and stuff like that. So, how did it feel to receive it, and what does it kind of mean to you now?
It was strangely I felt quite somber when I received it. I thought that I would be like quite excited. Because it's like it indicates some kind of end of a journey. There's a new journey that begins, but it's like this validation of all of this time, and you've thought, and I had thought about it for a long time. My coach Adam Childs, who's been on the show a couple of times, shouts. He runs the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast. If you haven't checked that out, go and have a listen.
Love ads.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing coach. That's a great show, by the way. But he was very vocal about it. I started training with him at Brown Belt. So obviously it was on the cards. And I was his only, I was his most advanced student. So, for him, it was like, I'm going to give you a black belt someday. And he would tell me, these are my expectations and I would like to see this from you. And I was like, wow, because prior to that, my coaches had never spoken about belts. It's an unspoken thing. which is kind of part of the jiu-jitsu culture where it's like never ask about the belt. But it's really cool when you can talk about it because it helps you manage your expectations rather than just kind of turning up every time at training being like, maybe today. You actually know like, all right, coach wants me to, train this many times. They want to see me correct these areas of my game. They want me to compete or whatever. So anyway, I'd thought about it a lot and visualized it and gotten very excited. When you think about something and you get really excited about it and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be psyched. Like, can't wait. And then the day was coming where Ads is like, hey, we're having a bit of a get together at the gym. There's an open mat. We want to make sure you're going to be there. You can be there. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. And then a couple of days later, he's like, you're coming on Saturday, right? Like, and it was the double confirmation that gave it away. And I'm like, I think I'm going to get my black belt. So I was kind of expecting it. And even when I said goodbye to Misa, I could tell the way she kissed me. I was like, she knows I'm getting my black belt today. How's that? Like, she was kind of bursting with pride when she said goodbye.
Yeah, she can't do the poker face thing.
No
way.
So I knew it was coming, and even when I'm sitting there and he's grading the other students, he gave out a few blue belts and stuff, and a bunch of stripes and whatever, and then he started talking about his black belt, and I'm like, oh, it's coming. I've been processing this since, but I kind of dipped into like low energy. I was like, oh wow, like almost a little bit overwhelmed. And then he's like, today Joe's getting his black belt, and then everyone lost it, because all the guys, it's so exciting. I've never seen someone receive their black belt.
Wow. Okay.
I've never actually been in a black belt ceremony. Yeah, in all that time. So it's a rare thing. It's the first time that all of these guys would have seen it. Maybe a couple of them had seen it before.
Yeah.
Someone that you train with, that you compete with, is now, a master or whatever. So they're losing it, and I walk up, and, he's like, he takes up my belt, and he's tying it around me, and I'm like, man, this is wild. And I just remember feeling like almost like a heaviness. And then he's like, man, say some words. And I didn't feel and I didn't express the excitement that I thought I would.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. It was very surprising to me.
Especially for you.
Because I am kind of...
You're a very good talker. You're very self-aware. And you're very good under pressure. Which I guess I'm not completely surprised, because it's a significant thing to happen to that doesn't happen every day, and to have a reaction that you weren't expecting. Like, you haven't trained for that. You've been under pressure before, but not like this. It was on the spot.
I think it was
because Misa walked in.
Yeah, she came in like before we sat down for the gradings. She turned up with Hattie and Leo. And I was like, hey babe. She's like, oh, we were just on my way to see my parents, and I thought we'd stop by and say hi.
So funny.
Her parents live in the east, so I was like, yeah, good one. Yeah. And then, then I definitely knew. But I think part of it was you never know how it's gonna feel. Part of it was that this whole time through my journey as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I had always anticipated that by the time I made it to black belt, I would feel like an expert. I would feel I had mastered jiu-jitsu. And I think anyone, like whoever's listening, if you can apply that, think about it in terms of something that you're chasing. Maybe if you do weightlifting, and you look at an Olympic caliber weightlifter, and you're like, man, that person just knows it all. They must wake up and they are just like, I am the best weightlifter in the world. I'm an expert. Or you look at someone, who's doing handstands, and you're like, and they're doing one-arm handstands, and you're like, I can't even imagine how confident I would feel in my abilities when I could do a one-arm handstand. I felt that way about the black belt. I'm like, the game evolves. There's always more to learn, but I'm like, I'm going to know the game inside out. Like, I will be so proficient, And when you get to that place, you realize there's so much I don't know. There are so many gaps in my game that I didn't think it was going to be like this. you don't feel like the expert. And it you know, there's a name for it. I think is it the Krug's-Dunning effect or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, you know, the deeper you get, the more you become an expert, the more you realize you don't know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're earlier on in the journey, you think you know it all because you don't actually know anything. So it was really fascinating. I think that was really the main thing for me, that I'm like almost a sense of not worthy, you know?
Totally.
And then over the weeks, you know, it's been reinforced to me that I am worthy. You know, you train and then you train with another black belt and then you know, tap them out a couple of times, or, you know, they can't get you, or, you know, and you're like, okay, I'm of this level. I know this shit. I'm really fucking good. You know, I've got heaps of I've got heaps of gaps.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that a white belt can still give me a hard time on the right day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A blue belt, you can catch me out if I'm not concentrating.
Yes.
And I think in jiu-jitsu, you think, when I'm a black belt, I will be untouchable unless I'm fighting another black belt. No, you're always touchable.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, alongside that feeling is also this weight that's like, and JT talks about this quite well, but it's almost like a responsibility that you have to show up. Because when you show up to train, you are a black belt now. People are going to come at you, you know, to show that they can catch a black belt, and you have to be able to uphold your standard.
Fuck.
You know?
Yep.
Whether you choose to or not, whatever, tap me out, white belt, like who gives a shit? I still, you know. But
do you like that pressure? Do you like that feeling?
Look, it keeps me accountable.
Yeah.
And I will say that since getting it, I instantly re-engaged with the learning process of jiu-jitsu.
So cool.
For the first time ever, I started thinking more about jiu-jitsu outside of training, watching tutorials, strategizing my approach to training over the next couple of months, which I'd never done before. I was like, I got to clean up some holes in my game. Okay, what are the holes? All right, this is the one we're working on for the next month. And so that was really beneficial. And I noticed, shit changed. Like I've started like, you know, grappling really well again. I say, you know, I haven't trained for the last couple of weeks. I've taken a bit of a break because of the COVID piece at the moment.
Isn't that incredible though, that, you know, get your black belt and now you're a keen student. You know, you it's almost like, you know,
a better white belt than I was at white belt.
Yeah. But I guess that's a cool thing about jiu-jitsu and just how that whole setup is that because you're accessible, you're not like you're the boss of the company and then no one has to deal with you. Like you still have to roll with everyone. You still have to, hold that standard. And now, because you have that mantle, you feel energized by it. I tend to think that I would like that. I would like, you know, I like the target type thing because it does that for me. And we know as coaches and stuff that, holding responsibility, you end up developing a lot quicker and stuff like that, which I think would be really cool, you know, when you become a purple belt. And having those people under you chasing you, and brown. But I think that black would just be a different type of mental pressure just because it's fucking, you know, it's so revered. It's the black.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it is. It's funny. Like I think about how I've engaged when I've been at, you know, when I was at the other belts. When I would train with a black belt, I would often almost be a bit kind of...
you wouldn't go too hard?
Starstruck. Yeah, I'd go kind of light because I'm like, I don't want to do something stupid.
Or offend them. And
yeah. And I got to keep that in mind because I'm sure some people will do that with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, they absolutely should not, right? They should like fucking show me your jiu-jitsu kind of thing. Like put it on me because that's what keeps me sharp.
Yes, yep.
Like we had it was actually very cool. There's another Alliance Academy. So Alliance is Adam's gym where I train at. It's in Rose Bay.
I wish I lived close to that academy. I'd definitely train there.
That's cool, man. If you're over that side, come by. But there's another Alliance Academy in Collaroy. Collaroy? No, not Collaroy. Just before Manly, whatever that. What's it called before Manly? Before you go down to the beach, when you come up off the Spit Bridge. Anyway.
Fuck knows.
Near the Spit Bridge.
Near the Spit Bridge.
And that's Fab's gym. And Fab had a grading at the end of the year, at the end of last year. and he just got back from America, and he had asked if I would come and Adam would come and whoever else wants to come. So Adam and I turned up, and it was very cool because he had another black belt who trains with him. And then, I turned up late because I couldn't find the joint, but he had all his students there. But I was part of I stood at the front, like I came and presented with Fab. I just stood there, but his students would come out, they'd get their belt or their stripe, and then they would, shake, bow to Fab, and then they would come and bow to us. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. Like you get to fulfill this role ceremonially. And then we rolled, and there was a bunch of students, got a bunch of brown belts, a bunch of purple belts. And, Adam was there and he's rolling. And I know that Adam's like looking like, like, hey, how you going with these guys kind of thing. And I could feel it's like, this is a time when I have to show the standard because these guys have just learned that I'm his freshest black belt. So he wants me to, hold that line.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm like, that was really fun. Like that little bit of pressure and that sort of responsibility.
How'd you go?
Yeah. Good.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah. You never roll and tell, but I did fine.
I've heard you and JT rolling and telling. It's fun. I love it when you guys go at it.
Like when we roll,
like when you're just joking about, I got you on that. No, mate. I had it.
Yeah. Or
So
he,
funny.
Photographic memory. He records every position and situation.
He's crazy. He's obsessive.
He is obsessive, and so is Adam in a way. And I'm less so.
Yep.
I'm competitive, and I'll bring it, but at the end I don't remember. I don't care. Kind of thing.
We're going to talk about some other stuff, but actually, I just want to go back into the martial arts history of Joe, because you reminded me just talking about the ceremonial aspect of it. And these days, in an age where everything's very accessible to us, and if we're not doing something, we've seen it online, kind of dilutes the just kind of the respect with certain cultures and stuff, because everyone kind of, oh yeah, I heard of that thing before. But, we came from an age where, part of martial arts, because some people go in and they do jiu-jitsu and, they're into competing, and there's a kind of a modern culture to it. And I don't really know all that much about it, but maybe you catch my drift. Whereas like martial arts, when we were young, was very oriental based, and there was a lot of culture and respect, and it wasn't just proficiency that was key. There was ceremony around it, and it was often intertwined with some sort of religious base, depending on where it came from, and the ceremony, and there's respect for those above. Now it's for a big part of it's very casual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Joking around and blah blah blah. But yeah, we came from that era, and I guess I just want to ask you, what did you do? What was the first type of martial arts that you did? And did you do Choi Li Fut at some time, or was that Abe?
Yeah, I did that through my brother.
Okay.
He would come home and teach me stuff.
Yep.
I did, and I don't remember in what order, but judo, some karate, some Wing Chun, some kickboxing. Yeah, I think that was it.
And you traveled to Japan once?
Yeah, for jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was wild.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd just gotten my blue belt, and I went there for the Asian Championships.
And what was that experience like? Was it
That was
traditional there in the gyms?
No, their gyms are fucking loose.
Really?
Well, we were training in Tokyo, and I say loose in that most of the classes didn't have start and end times. Or some did, but some that I went to were just roll in whenever you get here. And there were people rolling in the gym all hours of the day. You could turn up at 11 p.m. and roll till 1 in the morning.
Really?
Because it's such a busy city. People are working all the time. It just services all types of folks.
But when do you know when the coaching starts?
Who knows? I don't fucking know.
That's really old school.
Yeah.
In a way.
But it was more of because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has less of that traditional Eastern approach. And then it's funny how it's fed back into places in the East, like Japan, where they've really adopted it, where it's just it's almost just about getting in and scrapping.
Right. I fucking love the ceremonial aspect and the history of martial arts and stuff. Can you tell me, there's belts beyond black? Am I right?
There are, yeah. There's the red belt and the coral belt. which
the deal with
which
those?
show how long you've had a black belt for. So when you've had a black
Oh.
belt for 25 years, you get a red belt. And then when you've had that
Shit.
for 25 years, you get a coral belt, which is black and red. So they just show that you've been a master for a duration of time.
Do you have to be training that whole time?
No, you just have to be paying your fees to the International Federation.
Yeah, sure.
If you have, so I think it's like, you get the red belt when you've got 10 degrees. I think on your black belt, you get a degree every 3 years. But to officially have your degree recognized, you have to pay your fee.
Gotcha.
So it's whatever. There's plenty of black belts out there who aren't registered with the International Federation because they're like, fuck that.
What's the point?
Yeah, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, the cool thing is you do see red belts who are getting progressively younger. But the coral belts that you see always have grey hair. They're often, they look like they're a pensioner.
That's 25 plus years.
That's 50
That's 50 years.
for the coral. Yeah, so, so if you got your black belt at 30,
Yeah.
you have a coral belt at 80.
Oh, you get the red at 25.
Yeah.
25 years
Yep.
having had it.
Exactly.
Holy smokes.
It's funny to think these guys like Micah Galval, Taliesin Suarez, they will have a red belt, I don't know,
And they'll still be
like
reasonably young.
43 years old,
Holy
a
crap.
couple years, older than us.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so, the jiu-jitsu thing and the ceremonial aspect, it has a more casual and relaxed approach. And it definitely, it's separated somewhat from the mysticism of traditional martial arts, which is where a lot of the ceremony is tied up in, and focused more on the practicality. So, if you look at the greatest proponents of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu were the Gracie family. They weren't the only ones, but they were the most famous ones. And they had the Gracie Challenge, where they would pay 100,000 reals, Brazilian dollars, to any martial artist that could beat one of their family members in a fight. So they would have these karate guys show up, boxers, wrestlers, and they would fight them in a no rules fight and, try and win. And they usually won. So even that alone shows that it was really about developing the most effective fighting system, as opposed to a system of martial arts that includes, more of a life philosophy, spiritual aspects to it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so then you get the gyms now where it's like, you can bow or not. Like a lot of people bow and they step on the mats. Many don't.
Yeah.
Coach like, do you want to jump in, scrap, like kind of thing. Like it doesn't
Varies from gym to gym depending on the
It
culture
does.
that the coaches set.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's probably taken root so fast because it's cool. You can play some hip hop music while you're rolling.
Yep.
It's
Smoke a big doobie.
smoke a big doobie.
Seen those.
Yeah, people
Those
love doing
gyms.
that. The high rollers and shit. It's a
Yep.
jiu-jitsu comp where everyone smokes a blunt. Smoke a blunt with your opponent before you fight, and then you fight, and then the winner gets like a pound of weed. Yeah, and everyone in the room smoking, so it's like you can't see shit. It's just
Big haze.
Yeah, it's in California, as you
That's
can
so
expect.
funny. They'll be onto mushies next, or acid roller.
That'd be awesome.
Crazy. Everyone just melts into a big puddle. I wanted to ask you because 15 years doing the black belt thing, there's bound to have been multiple setbacks, I'm guessing, whether they were big ones or little small ones. I wanted to ask you about what some of the biggest setbacks were, maybe a couple of them, and just some thoughts on, well, you've reached the goal. How did you get through them? I know that the knee was a thing. You had a knee injury and you've been battling with that for a few years, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about, was there, and during these times, was there like a time where you were going to throw in the towel, or were you on your way and you were close, but there was like self-doubt and all that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess in terms of setbacks, there's probably been sort of two main periods where I've taken time away from jiu-jitsu. Maybe three. The first was talking earlier about my kind of peak jiu-jitsu, that time that I referred to it like, upper blue to purple belt.
The first peak, second one's coming.
First peak, I trained a lot, I competed a lot, and I did what my coach said, and my coach was like, like a lot of coaches in jiu-jitsu, they will squeeze as much out of you as they can because they want you to, they want you to show your skills. They want you to test yourself. It's all about jiu-jitsu. But I did a lot of that by putting a huge amount of pressure on myself. So I would turn up to training 4 or 5 nights a week, while trying to hold down a job in the film industry, which is just a real fucking struggle. Training really hard. The training in the gym turned into competition for me. Comps on the weekends and just
Strength conditioning.
Yeah, a little bit, right? I didn't love it. It became a pressure. And it was, I remember it. I'd be like coming home to Bondi, like where I lived with Rob, whatever, and be like, every night it's like, hey, I'm meeting up with so-and-so. We're going to go to the pub, grab dinner and a schnitzel. You want to come? And I'd be like, no, I'm going to go to training, Oh, come on, man. Like, fucking trained last night. It's like, I'm training tonight as well, But, I'm really grateful that I kept that discipline. But at the same time, there was that competing pool of like, man, I'm in my early 20s. I want to, like, I'm in my, whatever, like I'm 20 something. I just want to fucking have some fun. And I felt like the stress of jiu-jitsu was just kind of, was at times a little bit unhealthy for me. What I need to be doing was going out and getting fucked up.
And were you saying that was probably a combination of pressure from the coach or like, the gym itself, whether it was a single coach or not?
Yeah.
As well as a combination of the pressure you put on yourself?
Absolutely.
It was both,
yeah. It was a combo of all those things. And and it happens in a training situation. People would experience it here, where they're like, oh, I said to myself, I'm going to train 3 nights a week. And sometimes it gets hard and it becomes like that thing that keeps you accountable can take a step too far and become, an unhealthy pressure almost, or a stressor.
Yep.
But so that was happening at the same time we had just opened our gym, and that was just so all-encompassing at the time. I was working both ends of the day, running classes, up super early. I wasn't sleeping enough because you train jiu-jitsu at night, you're going to bed late. So you often sleep like shit when you train jiu-jitsu late, which is the lifestyle. So I wasn't enjoying training, had just opened the gym and got to this point where I'm like, I'm just going to fucking stop for a while. And I stopped. And so, I don't know, it was 1.5 years maybe that I didn't train and just focused on the gym. And that was really cool, actually, because it gave me a chance to focus on other things like, movement training.
Mm-hmm. I remember that time.
And then I got back into it at another gym because funnily enough, my gym shut down. The gym that I was at, the dojo, they closed their doors shortly after. It was a bit of an exodus that was coming, and I was just sort of ahead of that wave. Then I started training at another gym up the road, big one, had some good training partners, would show up there for about 1 year and a bit to do their lunchtime advanced classes, but really I was just scrapping and I wasn't learning. And there was no one there that was trying to coach. It was just like, come in and roll and kind of go for it. And because I wasn't training anywhere else, I wasn't in a coaching relationship with anybody. I wasn't getting much better. That coincided, or that came to an end when we opened this gym. Because this, you open a new gym, it then requires so much energy and attention. It was like, I'm going to put jiu-jitsu on ice for a while. So there was another break of 1 year, 1.5 years, something like that. Then I would eventually meet Adam, and, he kind of rekindled my spirit, the flame for it. He's like, man, I'm going to open up a gym soon. You should come train with me. And so, I did that, and that was awesome. And then I was on a really good path with him, and that was where I was, on track. I was training a lot. I was going to compete at brown belt. It was like, cool, this is going to be my first brown belt comp. And I know that I was approaching the black belt. I was getting close. I think I had 2 or 3 stripes. You get 4 stripes per belt. So you know that when you got a few stripes, like I'm pretty close to the next belt. And I'd registered for a competition and training with him for the comp one night, maybe a week or 2 weeks out. I ruptured my ACL, fucking major knee ligament.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that was like, all right, let's look at the options here. I was like, got to go for surgery. Okay, this is going to be a 12 to 18 month journey.
Yeah, that was 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, November. So that was a huge hurdle And
I felt that when that happened.
Yeah, because you had your Achilles rupture, what, like 18 months prior or 2 years prior?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so you'd just come back. And so, it was disappointing. It was a huge hurdle I saw, or not a hurdle, but it was just like a massive speed bump to my momentum. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, jiu-jitsu's on ice again for a while. I got back into training 6 or, maybe at 3 months, some light stuff. And then at 6 months, I was kind of back in there. And then I think it was around the time that COVID popped up at about the 10-month or about the 12-month journey, at the 12-month mark, I had to go in for another surgery. So then that delayed it again. Mm. So really that was all a bit of a kind of mess. I came out of that, I don't know, it's so hard looking back. But I did that I trained solidly, and then I got back into training solidly for 6 months or so, and then COVID hit, and then the gym was shut, jiu-jitsu was off and everything was off, life was off for a while. Mm. And then I remember we came out of COVID and it was like fucking training super hard, and then Ad's like, dude, there's a comp coming up. And I was like, let's do it, I'll do it. And he had said to me, I want you to compete once before I give you a black belt. I want you to compete at brown belt. So I was like, I'll do it. I'll do the comp. And so I did that comp, and that comp was...
Just laid it out like that.
Yeah, it was like February...
Last year?
Yeah, that's right. It was the beginning of last year. And I did that comp, and I'm really thankful I did, because like a week after that comps were off again because COVID sprung back up. Mm. So I was like, wow, I got in. I got to do that. And so, whatever. And that kind of marked me sort of getting a bit of momentum up again. Obviously a huge break again last year. Mm-hmm. I think probably he was feeling the pressure to give me the belt because he's like, fuck, this should have happened years ago. Mm. And he's like, he did the comp, but it's been like 10 months after the comp now. And, there was just so many, and you don't know what's coming, right? It's like,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like it was, it's been very turbulent time for all of us. So yeah, that was how it played out.
So I'm just trying to identify the setbacks. It's clear that the knee injury was a setback.
Yeah.
And then life chasing down some other big goals like opening a gym was really
starting
other
a small
setbacks.
business, yeah.
I don't know, like it seems like less of a clear setback because it's also something that you wanted, so it was a choice kind of that you made, or was it a real something that you had to sacrifice at that time?
No, I was fine. Yeah. I was happy to, it's just like, yeah, fuck, what's the priority right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So no, it wasn't an issue for me, but it's more just when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that was a setback in that journey,
Yeah.
Took me off the path.
Any great lessons overall considering those setbacks, etc.?
The big one with injury is that like it's obviously very disappointing when you get injured, especially when it's a major injury that requires surgery and a long rehab and all that stuff. But if you have variety to what you're doing, it doesn't hurt that bad. Like for me to stop training jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to work on I'm going to go back to my strength training and get on the rings and handstands and shit. I actually didn't do a lot of handstand work. I really ended up focusing a lot on knee rehab for the last couple of years. But that's all great stuff. That's all stuff that I enjoy. And maybe the knee rehab's not super fun, but being back in the gym and climbing ropes and getting strong and mobile and all that stuff. It's like I enjoy that as well. Mm. So I think, and we speak about this often, but having the diversity to what you do in your training is important. Mm. Because the flip side of that is you just train jiu-jitsu because you fucking love it. And then when you can't train it, you fall to pieces because your outlet, your fitness solution, your community aspect, it's all gone. You don't know how to get it somewhere else. So for me, I've always been like glasses half full with that stuff because I'm like, well, cool, that's off, but this is what's on.
Yeah, sure.
And how great's that,
Yeah, absolutely.
We've spoken about we often have too much on our plate in terms of training goals. Mm-hmm. So when it's a bit simplified, it's almost kind of nice because you just, I'll just focus here for a bit. That was a big learning. The other big learning was, I suppose, in the more nitty gritty of the surgery side of things is really do your research before you go and have surgery because there's a huge cost to being, cut open and operated on. Specifically from a mechanical perspective.
Explain a little bit.
As most people are aware, surgeons are, their goal, what they do is operate on you and repair things. So they are generally speaking biased towards, yes, let's do surgery.
That's my solution.
Yeah. I had confidence in my surgeon and in his relationship with my physio that they were not, that they were, open to not doing surgery. And I discussed that with the surgeon and he said, yeah, it's an option. So I didn't feel like I was, pushed into it or anything. And I'm not super diligent with researching things. I don't really care to dive super deep on whatever. I just like to get into it and get it done with anything in life. But so, I looked at the options and I was like, no, surgery looks like a good idea. And I'm like, yeah, surgery has its own drawbacks, but let's do it. Upon reflection now, I think I'm like, I don't know if it was worth it. I had to have a second surgery. I had to, there's been long periods of discomfort. I essentially now, I got a knee that doesn't work properly. It's stiff. I don't walk the way I used to. I can't get up and down. Like, there's a lot of limitations. Most people wouldn't notice it. Most people would look at me and think I'm back. But I can tell you it's based on what I was before versus where I'm at now. There's a huge gap. And so I'm like, well, how worth it was it? And I'm actually going to go, I got to go back and I got to get an MRI and I got to go see the surgeon again because I feel like maybe another surgery could help satisfy some of those.
And there's lots of details inside your particular case here. I don't know, what happened inside of that knee, but I guess you're weighing up whether it was worth it because there was other options as well.
Yeah. The thing is, like, after the injury, I had about, 7 days where it was a bit swollen and sore, because there was, there's a bit of bruising and shit because the bones have kind of hit each other. And the ligament snapped, so you don't feel anything from that. There's no associated swelling. It's just no longer connected. But there's a bit of bone bruising and stuff, but that kind of settled. I felt great. I had full range of motion. I could kneel down. I could sit on, you know what I mean? I could sit on my shins. Yep. And then you get surgery and then you're really fucked up. I'm still swollen from a surgery that I had 18 months ago. You've got, they've drilled holes in your bones.
Yes.
Sawed things. Like they've gone in there and caused major trauma. So that now you're recovering from that from the traumatic experience of surgery.
Yes.
That you could argue there's an emotional trauma as well. I don't feel like I really carry any of that, but many do. But the flip side is, well, if I didn't have the surgery, maybe my knee wouldn't have been as stable. Maybe I wouldn't have been as good at touch footy or, whatever. But I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't have had 2 years of I would have just been back in the game.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, maybe that would have resulted in me needing to go under the knife down the track for another issue that had popped up because of, having, you can't say.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not either for or against. It's such a unique thing, but I think really for folks, try to visualize each path and kind of how it might impact your life.
Do your research and try and look ahead and the mid and long term kind of ramifications of the choice you're going to make.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for most people, I think, especially when I think about people who aren't trainers, who aren't really that savvy at all about their body, because you usually end up just doing whatever they say, whatever they recommend. Hey,
you do. Yeah, you do. And at the end of the day, the greatest thing you can do is make sure you've got good people to advise you.
Yes.
You've got a great physiotherapist.
Yep.
Who can liaise with the surgeon and you trust in the surgeon and that they can give you good advice. I guess the other takeaway is more jiu-jitsu relevant is to have a coach that you like, that you have a good relationship with, and that you feel is invested in you and has your best interests at heart.
Yeah, sure.
Because for a long time I think I trained in a situation where I didn't have that. And that was probably one of the factors that pushed me away from it. It was the gym, opening the gym was the catalyst. But if jiu-jitsu was going really well, I probably would have kept it going through that period.
Sure.
But it was an easy move to be like, it was actually, I know in my heart that it was a convenient excuse. To get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Whereas I know Adam fucking is fully invested, and I really enjoy that process with him.
Yeah, man. I love seeing you guys together and hearing and been witnessing, your training journey with him, and just a good guy. Sounds like a wicked coach, in ways that I think many coaches probably don't do. As you said, setting out the expectations, all that stuff. It's mad. On that, like, what's your training look like now? You already spoke about how you're freaking lying awake at night thinking about your strategy. Someone that might have rolled with you that night. Like, how many times a week are you going at the moment, and what's the plan now that you've got this? Is there some goals there? You got this new energy, or are you just going to turn up and just do 1%?
Yeah, probably more the latter to what you just said. I'm not training right now, as I mentioned. I'm just while COVID is running rampant. I thought I'd just give it a bit of a break. More so for some people around me that I want to just make sure I'm reducing exposure. But training for me typically looks like 2 nights a week at Alliance and then a third session here. That's what I was working. That was what I was doing at the end of last year, and it was going really well. I know I'm focusing on some areas of my game that I want to fix. One of them is the knee, and I realize I'm not using that leg particularly well, which has kind of spurred me on to investigate it further and go and speak to the surgeon again. But I don't have any great desires to compete or to do anything special in the game.
Yep.
I suppose I want to feel like I'm worthy of the rank that I have.
Sure.
And I want to just give it some time and however long that is, whether it's 12 months or 3 years, whatever, and just be like almost tick that box to myself and go, I'm really happy with that, yeah. And then who knows, I mean, I'm increasingly aware of the injury risk with training it, and we're approaching 40, and I'm like, you know what, I'm happy not to be injured. So then I question my future in it, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not diehard about it anymore. I really enjoy it, and I would love to be able to continue to play the game and have fun with it for many years. So I guess I'll just keep monitoring and sort of taking steps to keep that.
Yeah,
And
as far as coaching goes, at the moment you're not coaching jiu-jitsu.
No.
Is that somewhere on the card? I know you've done plenty of it in the past, and I actually know your future. You're quite busy here with the gym and stuff. Do you think that that's something that could develop later on?
Yeah, totally. I've always thought, like, if we reach the levels of success we hope to with the Jungle Alliance, with the goals that we have for that, I would love to be able to come back into a coaching role.
Yes.
I would love to be able to go and open a gym, in some part of town or some part of the country that is a bit disadvantaged.
Halfway between you and me.
There you go, brother.
Rahaz.
Somewhere and run it kind of lean and not have to extract much income from it and just enjoy passing on what I know.
Yeah.
And the Jungle Alliance, that's its goal, right? Is to foster that. So a place where could teach some jiu-jitsu, could teach some calisthenics, bit of mobility, like fucking awesome. We're so much in the thick of it now that I don't know when that would be. But, I look at the life of a jiu-jitsu coach or a coach, here, and I'm like, that can be a fucking awesome life. Like if you're not relying on it solely to feed you and your family, and if you can just enjoy it and it can it can look after itself, I think beautiful. So yeah, that's totally there.
That's so cool.
Keep me accountable too, right? I mean, like I said before, like whatever, we're approaching 40. The last thing I want to be is that guy that's like 43 and being like, but I'm 43 now, man. Like that's why I'm out of shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I we think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
So something like jiu-jitsu does, you can use it to keep you accountable to holding a standard of personal health and strength and flexibility.
It's got so many good things. On that note, I've just returned. I started jiu-jitsu a long time ago. I've been terribly inconsistent over the years. Film industry had had a lot to do with that, as well as having children. It started when I just started getting into it. Actually, jiu-jitsu was part of the reason why I left the industry, because I had the kids. I had started jiu-jitsu, had the kids, and it was I've told you before, I kind of realized how jiu-jitsu, to get any good, I needed some consistency. I already knew these sorts of things, but it just became bleedingly obvious when I was training, you know, maybe twice a day, 4 times a week sort of thing. And then I'd leave on a film 6 months, come back, and there was people just coming 3 times a week or twice a week, and they were just getting better than me. And I was like, this happened over years. It's part of the realization, you know, that I wanted to leave and do other things, and it didn't allow me to do that. But long time, you know, on and off, you know me, always doing this, doing that. We went through COVID last year, etc. Was vowing to come back, and I came back this year. I think for me, I always, I don't allow myself to commit to. I haven't been allowing myself to commit to it because I can't give everything to it. JT's changed my mind about that. He's like, I don't care, just come once a week, and just keep that consistent. And so that's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Yeah, Wednesdays, lunchtimes. I'm excited by it.
Do you think about your purple belt?
So I was thinking about it, and I do. Yeah, I have been lately because I've been on the gym floor and watching everyone upstairs last year. All these people just walking past me, walking upstairs. I would look up all the time. It's, you know, and then the boys came in, Alex and whatnot, and I'm like, oh, cool. It's been so cool because, you know, we didn't have a jits program, and now we have one.
Yeah,
got
it's legit.
Colored belts, and there's people here, and I'm like getting very excited by it. And yeah, I started thinking about, you know, the purple. I'm looking at these guys going, I can mix it with them. No, but yeah, I do think about it now, and going into it, it's not necessarily the goal. The goal for me is to be consistent all year, because I know that's when I've had the best development. That's what happens. You turn up and you kind of compound the knowledge, and you get to practice something, then practice it again, and you really just have to be consistent, whether it's 1 or 3 times a week. So that's the first goal. See where I'm at by the end of the year. And whatever happens between then, like by the end of the year, probably I'll be thinking about the purple belt. If I can do that, you know, I will know where I am kind of in that spectrum. And then I would probably set that goal by the end of the year. If it was close or halfway or what it was, I would say that I'd set that goal from there.
Yeah, right.
So the idea is be connected to it all year round. You know, it would be awesome if one session turned into 2, but not put too much pressure on myself. Just keep turning up, and that's it for now.
Mate, that's awesome.
It's so cool because I said that I'd start in 2022, and the gym reopened, and everyone was like, where are you going? And I said, it's too busy right now. I'll start in the new year. Then that came. And actually, so we had the grading, and we had was it the blue belts before the end of the year?
Yeah.
It was.
Jeremy and Connor.
That's right. And JT's like, hey, yeah, come, you know, we want people there, put on your, and I hadn't put on the gi for like 8 months or something, so I felt like a bit of a freeloader. But I wanted to be part of it. It's freaking my gym as well. I want to be there as well for them and celebrate. And that was my first role. Fuck, I was so lifted. I was so high at the end of that night. Not because I just went in and like beat a bunch of people. It was just so much fun. I had like, because it was the 1 hour session where the guys are rolling nonstop. We were all rolling, and I might have had, I don't know, it felt like I had a dozen rolls or something like that.
Oh, wow.
On the night, you know, to varying degrees, but fuck, it was so much fun. I was so excited. So I was keen to get back in here as soon as I could and hit that Wednesday session. And I did that. And yeah, I'm delighted for the year ahead with some jiu-jitsu, bro. So I'm coming. I'm just behind you.
Mate, you're just there.
Just right there.
I think it's time.
Yeah.
Let me roll Joey in front of JT. Hey, JT, where are you going? Bro, I'm super excited for you too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you'll get the purple belt if you want it. And, you know, if it's there, you'll get the brown and the black too. Like, you know, and that's the coolest thing. You're like, I can do this, you know, if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, it means, you know, obviously at our stage, your stage, it means you have to say goodbye to other things temporarily. But, you know,
yeah.
and that's, you know, I think that's important takeaway for anyone listening. It's like, you can have a one-arm handstand as well if you really want it. You got to sacrifice a lot to get there.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, the sacrifices aren't worth it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's you know, we always have to make that choice when we're chasing any lofty kind of goal, whether you know you're chasing it or not.
Yeah.
You know, you know, because if you're showing up to jiu-jitsu regularly, you're on the path to black belt.
Sure.
You don't have to
That's
necessarily consciously decide you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, or if you're showing up to handstand class, you're at some part of the journey towards a one-arm handstand.
Yeah,
you know?
that's right. Yeah. Albeit very early in that journey.
Yeah.
Just packing the car.
Yeah, you're like an amoeba within that. Oh man, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed having the tables turned today. Had you running the show? How'd you find
Feel the
it?
pressure, bro?
Mate, please. No, you know, I mean, I love to talk about myself.
Yeah. We know.
I can't wait to post this episode and replay it multiple times next week.
You've just take my channel out
Yeah,
when you do it. No, it was cool. Good fun. Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, it's a bit of time has passed since when you got it, but I was super stoked. Super stoked when you got it. I was just like, you know, so happy for you. Fuck, I can't help it. This whole podcast, I keep thinking about telling the story. And, you know, it was a time when, do you remember when we were working on a film in New Zealand? Was it Wolverine? And we were on Queen Street and we had a hotel. I'm pretty sure. Oh, was it Melbourne? It was Melbourne. Yeah, that was the what came before Netflix? It was that army. It was a
Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers.
What was it? HBO?
HBO. Yeah.
Yeah.
So working on that as an additional fly in, fly out, get a hotel. I don't know if it was the same weekend or because we flew down a number of times. There was one time we went to the festival.
Yes, with Mick Rigg.
Was that the ginger head guy?
Yep.
That's so funny. But there was one time where we went out. Maybe it was New Zealand, but
No, it was Melbourne. We went out
okay.
drinking.
Yeah. Do you remember when I feel like you were a blue belt, but all you wanted to do is lay your hands on me?
Yeah.
All you wanted to do, you just kept on grabbing me by the tricep, coming up behind me.
Just showing you what I knew.
You were like, yeah, pretty much. You would just had your hands all over me. I'm like, and at that stage, I didn't really know shit about it. I was like, fucking get off me. Get off me. And it was like, I just remember going down the street and I don't know if it was daylight, but the streets were empty. And it was just like you grabbing my hips, trying to kind of do a body lock and me like turning and chucking. And it was just like that all the way down the street. It was just like, boom, up against some glass and then boom, over here. And then a bit of walking, then boom again.
Yeah.
But then we ended up back in the hotel room and it continued on and we put the hole in the wall. Because you just took me out and I don't know, someone's shoulder or elbow
Went through the
ended
wall.
up in the wall. And it had the floor to ceiling curtains.
Yeah.
We just pulled the curtain across because it was just underneath the thing and walked away from that hotel room. Production probably picked up the bill.
Never heard anything of it.
Nah. But I thought I'd just leave the listeners with that memory
That's a good one.
of a young buck Joe.
Feisty.
Just feisty. just jumping on everything. It was a funny time.
It's a nice one. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Guys, thank you. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
That's all right. You're going to do the wrap up or am I?
Go on. Taking us this far.
Hell. Yeah. Look, if you like the episode, please support the show by sharing it with a friend or sharing it onto your social media account. That would be really great for us. We'd be truly grateful. If you want any help with your training, you want to ask us any questions about even the Jungle Alliance, Jungle Brothers, what we do down here in Botany, please reach out. You can find us on junglebrothers.com. We're on Instagram at Jungle Brothers Movement. And pretty much those are the channels. They're there. Come get at us.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paulie.
Peace.